Welcome back to the Culinary Mechanic podcast. I gotta tell you, I'm having so much fun with this process. It's freaking cool. I dig it. Recently I met a guy by the name of Christopher Wells, and we just seemed to bond over the idea of hospitality in hospitality. Um, and talked a little bit, and it was very clear that he needed to be a guest on the Culinary Mechanic podcast. So what follows is the first part of a two-parter. And we just got down to talking about kind of how he got into it all and how he as a person just found his way towards tech and trying to help people run restaurants better. So can't wait for you all to hear it, and excited to get going. So here we go. Today I'm here on the Culinary Mechanic podcast with Christopher Wells, the founder, CEO of Piecemeal. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Simon, thanks for having me. Super happy to be here with you.
Awesome. I gotta tell you, I'm one of those people who is just thoroughly enjoying the act of podcasting. So I'm glad that we can do this conversation. Nothing better than having fun with it, right?
For sure.
And as is pretty customary here at Culinary Mechanic Podcast, we don't fuck around. So I'm going to press the gas and say, how'd you get into the industry? How'd you find yourself like working in restaurants and hospitality?
Let's see. I always try to say I'm going to try to make this a short story. I'm not really good at short stories, so as we'll probably see today. But my dad, hey Daddy-O, if you ever watch this, hope you don't, because I'm about to say that I wish I could kick you in the shin for this one. But 14 years old, still messing around, riding my bike, doing what a 14-year-old boy does. Before I started chasing the girls and all that, still want to ride my bike, play in the woods, and do all kinds of stuff right at that line. And my dad comes to me that summer. He's like, then the summer camps and this and that. He said, I think you should go work. And now, some over what, I don't know if it's 30 some odd years later now, I wish he would have let me have a couple more summers to mess around. But, being a good boy and wanting to say, oh, my dad thinks I should go to work and I should be, start being a man. And you want to be a man at 14, the hormones are starting to kick in and all that. So I think I printed 19 resumes. I had worked in a mini golf, off and off a few years before. And so I put together a resume of some of my, hobbies and that. And I take my bike and then I go and I pass resumes around to video stores, grocery stores. The video store was the one I really wanted to go work at, and you had to, for the younger people, you've never seen this, but you used to go rent these tapes and then you'd have to go put them back on the shelf and tell people which new movie was cool. So I was like, oh, this would be fun. I wound up studying cinema later and all that. But so I spend the whole afternoon and it's like super hot outside. I'm sweating. And then I come back and I got one resume left. And I'm coming back to my place and there's a restaurant pretty close to my house. So I'm like, I'm just going to drop it in just so I can say that I dropped my 19 resumes.
Right.
So I go in and I go see Gloria. And I say, I'd love to, leave my resume. I don't know if you have any work for me. She's like, oh, I just hired a dishwasher. We're always looking for, energetic young guys like you, but let me keep it in case I ever need it. Go back home. Don't think any of it. I'm like hoping nobody calls so I can, tell my dad, did the resumes, but I ain't working, right? 2 days later, my mom wakes me up at 8:30, 8:45. It's, it's the beginning of summer, school's out. She's like, there's a lady, Gloria, from Lorenzo's restaurant who just called you. She wants to know if you can be there in 30 minutes. Sure. So I get dressed. There are moments in life that are going to have an impact for the rest of your life. So get dressed, walk down there. I have no idea what's going to happen to, what I'm walking into. I walk in, she sends, go see Nick in the back. So I go see Nick in the back. Nick he's like, the dishwasher machine's broken, so we have to wash the dishes by hand. Well, actually, it's half working, but because I do have another story in the first week of breaking a whole rack of dishes. But he basically fills the two sinks with burning hot water, takes the plates full of dried eggs, throws it in the soap, and then he's like, you wash it here, you rinse it here, you put it in that rack. I stick my finger in the water, and I don't know when you burn yourself, I don't know for you, but it just goes down my spine. So I do that, and I remember the feeling of it going down my spine, and I'm like, I will never be able to do this. And then I'm like, but at least I got to try. And I would believe that'd be the summer of 91 to tell you how long ago that was. But because I was 14, yeah, I was born in 77. So, and then I worked with Gloria and Nick for 3 years. And then I worked for the people who bought it from them. But I remember actually, well, Nick told me in those 3 years, after I'd been working with them for a while, I got very close to them, and they were a Greek couple, so I learned a lot of Greek swear word, a lot of Greek people operating restaurants in and around. I'm based in Montreal in Canada, so a lot of Greek operating restaurants here. And Nick told me, he said, Chris, you know what? The first 15 years in this business are hard. And after over 30 in it, I must say he was right. The first 12, 15 were really hard. Then it got really easy after that because it was just kind of like, you've done your 10,000 hours of anything, you get really good at it. But in that first week, he had told me, be careful, the door of the dishwasher. I guess they didn't want to overuse it, or I don't remember what the issue was, but he's like, it doesn't always work. And I think he fixed it halfway. So I put the tray in and I'm filling all the plates. And eventually, basically, the door hinges that hold it had been broken. So the door would fall off. So I pulled out a rack to empty it of, hot plates. And then the whole rack fell down. And I remember seeing the plates go bing, 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 and going, I'm going to die. So that was it. I mean, that same summer, Nick tells me, and I'll stop soon, but just this a long
No,
how
no,
I
I
got
love
into
it.
it story. But Nick tells me, Chris, you need to clean the fryer. I'm like, what does it mean? He's like, well, you take a pail. And I'm like, what's a pail? I'm French, right? So I didn't even know what a pail was back then. Like my English was okay, but so you empty it, you put back the cap on it, you put some soap and water, you scrub it all down, you get that out, rinse it, put some oil in. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he's like, I'm gonna go have a smoke or whatever he does. I grabbed the first pail, plastic pail, right after lunch, and then I put it in there, and then I start emptying the oil. And obviously, after 4 seconds, there's a hole, and I'm standing, dancing, and
You're
burning
hurting
hot
my heart
oil.
right now.
And then he comes in, and I'm like, Nick. So I'm like, I turn that off, and he comes in. He's like, no, the metal pail there. I'm like, well, I need more. Goes back to training people with the proper tools and the proper information, other than just clean it with some soap and water. So that was the first time so there was all that kind of weird stuff that happened to me that first summer, but it's also kind of really exciting because there's an energy in the kitchen that I was like,
Yep.
he started showing me how to make pizza and how to make subs and how to flip eggs and how to, we'd serve 400 breakfast and I'd be buttering the toast next to him. And anyway, so that's the start of it. But that's kind of where I got the bug because I talk fast, I think fast, a little bit of an ADD, like ADHD or whatever, and that energy in a restaurant was like, okay, I can match this, like it matches my personality. So
Yep.
that's kind of how I got started in that
That's
12-minute
awesome.
rant.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm an adrenaline junkie. Yeah,
Yep.
I feel it
Yep.
all the way to my core.
Yep.
That's sweet. All right, so you get in, you get the bug because we all do. I think
Yep.
that's why we're here. Um, like what keeps driving you forward? Like, I mean, there's clearly at some point you can go a million different directions. High school probably ended at some point, and you can do whatever you want. What keeps you where you are?
Like a lot of people, it's funny for a lot of people when you get older, it's the money, right? Especially if you're in service, it's the money that keeps you in because you're like, I'm making a shit ton of money working 4 nights a week, and I'm gonna go be first year lawyer, or I'm gonna go be an accountant or whatever I'm gonna go do. And it's like, well, it's
Yep.
boring and then the money's crap. Like, and then I'm working with fun people making money. So but for me, it took me a long time to, I guess, that level of energy that I need. I worked out throughout my life on and off. And now I've been working out doing the same thing for 10 years pretty much. And I know people hate to hear about this because like all of us that do CrossFit were like weird beasts that all we do is talk about CrossFit. But when my girlfriend, wife, mother of my children, whatever we want to call her, a beautiful lady, Eve, tried CrossFit, and we have one of our best friend who had tried it and suggested we should. She went and she's like, "Listen, I think I'm gonna do this," and she's done it on and off. But she's like, "You are so gonna. This is exactly you. It's over the top. It's intense. It's crazy. It's." And so for me, that's kind of drives with my energy, right? I played music on stage. I studied cinema. I did pro wrestling when I was younger. Like I need stuff that's intense. That's kind of it goes with my personality. But so I think that energy in the restaurant business of we're always treading on the fine line of between it's controlled chaos pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, the restaurant business, playing music live on a stage in front of hundreds of people, pro wrestling in front of 1,500 people, crossfitting, you're always on that edge between sanity and insanity. It also keeps me focused when I do these things because you have to like where my overactive brain gets focused on one thing. In the middle of a rush, you're focused on the 12 chits that are there, making sure you're timing your orders with other, departments or other stations and stuff like that. And
Yep.
that restaurant, we did a ton of, I was gonna say shit ton, but you swore early on. I guess I can swear,
Ah,
but
please.
we're in the kitchen here. But
We're in the
like,
kitchen.
trying to match deliveries on the map at the same time as you're producing them, making sure I've done delivery, like delivered pizzas and stuff like that for years. So there's that energy of, and when you get out of there, you're so exhausted mentally and physically that you're satisfied. Like, so I guess for me, it was really that energy that having a lot of people, there's a lot in a restaurant, again, going back to control chaos. I've never actually thought of it that way, but it's also like everybody needs to do their part, that teamwork. If everybody does their part well, we're going to do really well. If one person messes it up, we only, like in anything, it's a cheesy, but we're only as strong as the weakest link. Well, in the restaurant business, it's that a hostess that starts messing up how she's sitting people is going to mess up the servers and how the orders go in the kitchen. Same thing in the kitchen. One of the stations not keeping up, I can do the best job on my station. And if I'm calling stuff properly and making sure that we're timing our stuff, if you're not where you need to be when you need to be there, if the prep wasn't done properly, anyways, I'll go on forever if you don't stop me. But
That's
that
okay.
energy, and later on, just to finish with that, when I got into service, I did a lot of bartending, a lot of service, and high-end restaurants and all that. And I always figured, like, I'm like, how does this keep me motivated? Because my brain is so like short-term, attention, and I want to do so many things. But if I impress four guests at a table and they say, Chris, that was amazing, right? And obviously I always strive to be excellent, and I got a lot of positive comments, and I think I'm a
Yeah.
really, really good server and bartender. When people say that was outstanding, like it was amazing, Chris. Thank you so much. You made our evening even better. The food was great, the atmosphere was great, but damn, that was amazing. When they want to hug you at the end when they're
Yep.
paying the bill. They leave. If I do a shitty job on the next table, I'm an asshole and I just ruined their night. It doesn't matter. Like every new person, every new guest that you greet, that you talk, is basically, it doesn't matter how great you were 10 minutes ago. You have to do it again now at the same standard of excellence. And that desire to excel has always kept me like this is not like you write a book or something where you're going to get paid, you get royalties long term. No, it's now you did amazing now. You need to do that. The restaurant business is not being amazing once. It's being really good 25,000
Over
times and
and
having
over
consistency.
and
Right?
over.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what
Yeah.
keeps me motivated.
The restaurant business can be a grueling, grueling day-to-day endeavor. And with costs rising all the time, profit on the bottom line, it's getting scarce. It's getting hard to do. Culinary Mechanic is here for you, though. From systems, tools, and structure to coaching on leadership, delegation, and time management, or perhaps even just being an accountability partner to help you drive those results, drive a little more money to the bottom line. We can help you. You can find us at www.culinarymechanic.com. Don't worry, we got you. There's a great theme there as far as like instant gratification. I think it speaks to, like I talked to a project manager not too long ago, and it's like deadlines and coordination. I'm like, deadlines and coordination, dog. I'm talking 6-minute tickets here. We gotta go, and the hot dog has to meet the hamburger in the
Yep.
middle, and the fry guy has to be fresh, and like you say, every single one, whether it's you know every customer, but it's all that instant gratification. And it's I worked in a I'm gonna dive off for you. Ready? Off to the left.
Yep.
Above the door of one of my favorite restaurants that I ever worked in Santa Barbara, California, it said, "You are only as good as your last performance."
Totally.
And the quote was attributed to Joaquin Splichal, who I ended up working for a couple years afterwards at Patina down in LA.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more true. Like exactly what you're saying. It's like you're
Yeah.
only as good as that last plate that goes out,
Yeah.
and I think that I I very much like you. I loved it. I have a ton of energy. My whole life I've just been the guy who like I am inertia, right? And like
Yeah.
I'm a big boy, you know. well over 200 pounds. When I get going, you don't really stop me. I'm gonna mow
Yeah.
through it. It isn't always pretty, but god damn it, we're gonna go.
I'm a big boy too. I'm like I'm 250, and I can tell you my last couple of years when my knees couldn't keep up with me. It's not like my
Oh,
spirit still wants to do this, but my like holding like just clearing a table was getting so hard on my and I mean I last serving job right it was 2012, so it's 12 years ago. But yeah, even then it was getting hard. But there, like you were talking before we started, the podcast, we talked a bit before, and you were saying how there's a lot of people that want to work in this industry, and it's the perception of how cool it is, and a lot of people have left it, but there's always an attraction to what we do. And I tell people, other than like flying like airplane, like a fighter jet, or working in a emergency in a hospital, which will show you probably some really ugly stuff that not everybody can handle, there is absolutely nothing. I don't care. Like I've managed multi-unit for McDonald's. I worked in five-star restaurants, like fine dining. And in between, there is absolutely nothing like 7:15 on a Friday night when it's packed at the door, or it's packed in the drive-through, or it's packed in the dining room, and you just take 4 seconds to lift your head. And I remember like looking at the bartenders, or if I was serving, and looking at the hostess at the door, and then I could see the kitchen back there, and chef calling shots left and right, and somebody, and I'm like that dance of everybody operating a restaurant. Because you're like, right now we could turn the music off, turn the lights on, and we'd all be like, this is kind of weird, all of us standing here. Like, the guests, us, the team, everybody, it would be weird if we stopped that kind of dance. But that dance is so gorgeous of, hey, behind you, cool, you're moving around. I'm meeting you in a hallway. You got a tray full of drinks. I'm being careful. Sorry, man. Where's the washroom? The phone's like, I don't know. That whole dance is such, it's artistry. It's an art to do the restaurant, the hospitality properly. And
yeah.
I don't know if you can feel it. I miss it dearly every day. I'm raising kids now. I have a startup. I love my life. I've never been happier. But the energy, my wife still runs restaurant, and I can tell you
Oh
on a
wow.
Friday night when I know she's in the middle of a rush, I'm kind of jealous on a 7:30 on a Friday night. The amount of time I've said, I'll go help you and get in there. But yeah, it's something.
I honestly, I miss those days. I don't need to recreate them. I can tell you that much. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't. Oh, I don't know. About 5, 6 years ago, I was running a few restaurants, and I got this one sous chef, and I don't know. I was having some issue with my knee because I've had issues with my knees forever, and he looks at me and he goes, "You okay, old man?" And I was like, "You should watch your tongue right now." And he goes, "No, no, come on, it's okay. You can step aside. Us young guys, we can do it." And I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. You give up about 15, maybe 16 years to me, maybe more. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I said, but here's the honest truth. If you stand me next to you, I'm going to outwork you every day of the week.
Yeah.
I've got tricks that you've never seen. I've forgotten more than you're ever going to learn. I
Yeah.
promise. But here's the difference. When you go home, you're going to take a shower, you're going to slap on some cologne, and you're going to go find the fun for the evening. I'm going to go home, take 2 anti-inflammatories,
Yeah.
say, "Baby, I did it again." And my wife's going to bring me ice packs and a
Yeah.
heat pack for my lower back, and I'm going to recover on the couch drinking a whiskey. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So I said, I can do everything you can do. The difference is the recovery.
Yeah, what we're gonna do after. Yeah, the going out, finding the fun, going to bed at 4 and being up at 7:30 to do it all over
Yes.
again. Yeah,
Yes.
as you get older, this is where you're like, yep, can't do that anymore.
All right. So you you're clearly an adrenaline junkie who enjoys herding cats. Cool. Um, and as I find you here in 2024, you're the guy who's got a startup, a piece of tech.
Hmm.
Tell me how that. Tell me that what the corner was that got turned. Tell me what the road to piecemeal is, because this is really fascinating to me.
I'm not a tech for tech person. It's funny. I just recently did a video on that. I'm like, tech for tech's sake means nothing. Tech is a tool. It's a
Yes.
hammer. A hammer can sit on a shelf and gather dust. It can build a house that's going to create memories for a family. Like a hammer can do some really amazing, it can kill somebody too, right? It's what you do. A tool is a tool. So I don't really give a shit about the tech, even though I own a tech company, and I started a tech company. But years ago, I was a multi-unit manager for McDonald's. I worked for a chain in Canada called Boston Pizza. I was the first general manager for Boston Pizza when they came to Quebec. There's over 200 units, maybe 300 units now, but there are a few stores in the US, but they're big, very big brand in Canada. And I worked for all these people, and they all had different systems, some really good, some really bad. Like McDonald's had an amazing scheduling system that looked like it was built in 1902, but it worked really well, and they had a really good ordering sheet. Like McDonald's had really good systems, like an ordering sheet based on the usage per thousand. So think of a living par level, right? So in the last period, we used, I don't know, 50 Apple turnovers for 5K. Well, if I divide that, then whatever my numbers might not make sense right now, but let's say I'm using 3 per 1,000, we're gonna sell 3,000. We need 9, right? So whether to prep them, to order them, or whatever, it's super precise. Like, so you would base your order based on your sales for the week. It would modulate your par level, your usage per 1,000, and then it would tell you what you need to order. And so I learned a lot of these systems. Like I'd never gone to school, and I just but so fast forward, I wanted to do consulting. I wanted to do all kinds because I was like, the independents don't know a lot of the stuff that the chains don't necessarily make the best burger, the best. They just have systems that allow them to scale and to build big businesses. So I was like, if I could use some of what the independents know to the one of the chains know for the independents, I could help a lot of restaurants that because I've worked in 30 restaurants, independents and chains, and I was like, a lot of times the independents just they have a good heart, they're artists, they're passionate, but they just don't have any systems. I'm like, how could I help them? So I mean, I dreamed of building from the chains that I worked at. I'm gonna build like a book of all the operation manual for independents to help them. And then one of my uncle who's had businesses like, yeah, it's gonna be a really tough business to scale. Long story short, that got me into consulting. I did consulting. I consulted with 125 restaurants, and over an 8-year period, I trained, 300 managers, over 1,000 employees. I've done over 1,000. I've done 15 openings. I calculated over about 1,000 interviews in my life for employment interviews. So helped me understand a lot of the human psyche and a lot of stuff, especially also serving and working. So I sat there in like 2012 doing consulting and having a few clients, and I was like, I dream of a platform where I could put a sales prediction, simplify the ordering for the restaurant, their scheduling, their purchases, like a combination of all the best tools I'd seen out there, and help them control their prime cost, right? So prime cost, for those who don't know in our business, is going to be your COGS, cost of goods sold, and your labor. And if you go above 65%, it's going to be hard to make, 60 to 70, depending on the style, but it's going to be very hard to make money because you have to pay the rent and everything else. So I was like, I can't renegotiate the price of the lease, the price of gas, and all that. What I can help any operator controlling their team is those two budgets. So I dreamed of that platform. So I was dreaming of what we call a SaaS platform, a software as a service, where I pay as I go for something that's based online. I was dreaming of that in 2012 when I didn't know what it was. But I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? So I'm like, I need to find somebody in tech, right? And I saw all these people making a ton of money in tech and doing all kinds of stuff and other stuff than restaurants. And my girlfriend, my wife, was already running a bunch of really nice high-end restaurants. We were living close to Ottawa at that point, and she's like, "Okay, so and so is in tech." And I told him about you had some ideas. He's gonna have lunch with. So I did that 2, 3 times. Went to have lunch with these guys that were either developers or part of building businesses, and these guys would be like, "Oh yeah, Chris, you have some ideas," and I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna create a platform for restaurant management." So then they kind of throw up in their mouths and run away from me every time. Oh, this is a great idea, Chris, and then never hear from them again. So fast forward, I was trying to find ways to finance that. I was trying to do like I've training videos online that I did. I was trying to do like the Netflix of restaurant training with in my basement, and I filmed a bunch of them on that wall there behind you. And then eventually a guy named Oz Trackman, who's my partner today, reached out on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, you're a consultant. I'm building tools for restaurants. Maybe your clients could have a purpose for my tools." I'm like, "You're doing what?" A developer that's doing tools for restaurants. And since like by that point there was other systems on the market that had appeared, I always thought they were either super complicated or they're only doing one thing. They're only doing inventory or scheduling, or they were like the compete Restaurant 365 of the world that were doing everything, and they would have had to hire a consultant like me or you to run that system. So it worked for a chain, but for an independent, it's not something that was accessible. So I kind of want to democratize access to the tech by giving people something a little bit simpler. So I met with Oz, and then he told me what he was building. It was called MenuSum back then, and it was literally a costing tool that he had built because his brother had opened a restaurant, so he got involved because he wanted to make sure he could help him. And then I gave him the vision of what I had in my head for years, which was more elaborate than what Piecemeal is today, but more complicated what he had in mind. We kind of had to meet in the middle at some point. But then we met a second time. He's like, "Yeah, I think we could probably work together." Oz is a man of few words. I'm a man of too many words. Obviously, I know that it is the way I'm built. But so after a 45-minute meeting where I spoke for 40 minutes, he's like, "Yeah, let's talk again." And then we met a second time, and he showed me something that he was working on, which was an OCR, which is a core feature of Piecemeal today, but that reads invoices in real time. Therefore, it updates the cost
Wait, I'm going
of
to
every
stop you.
item.
For everybody that doesn't know what that means, it's optical character recognition.
The,
Because,
the same way when you take a picture of a check and the check gets deposited in your bank
yep,
system.
there you
So
go.
take a picture of an invoice, and then the system reads it and extracts the data and then updates the price of the tomato. Therefore, any item that's got a tomato in your inventory system gets updated in real time. So you can see costs modified every day almost. And then the on-hand quantity. Now, for those of you who don't know, again, previous to an OCR or an EDI, that means I'm receiving the information directly from my suppliers, which the big companies, the Cisco's, GFS, Perform, whatever. I'm forgetting the other big ones in the States, but
US
they'll
Foods,
have
all
some of
that
those.
stuff.
But a lot of the smaller suppliers, the other 25,000 small suppliers, don't have that stuff. The traditional way of doing an inventory is you're entering invoices 3 to 5 hours a week in a system to be able to track inventory. So when Oz showed me that, I was like, damn, you're changing the game. We can seriously do something there that's going to obviously remove one of the biggest friction as to why smaller restaurants are not doing inventory is they don't have the manpower to do that. A chain, a group, somebody that's got, a bigger price point or something, it's making millions of dollars can hire somebody to do that. But for most
Right.
restaurants, they don't have. So we eliminated that part. So when he showed me that, I was like, okay, you keep building that, and then just to finish again that story, my story is like I said, or way too long. I'm very aware, but
It's okay.
Oz said, "What I said, what can I do to prove to you that we should work together?" He's like, "I'm having a hard time getting data to test recipes and the menu, what used to be menu sum, and then invoices for the OC." I said, "Hold on." So I turned around, I went to 3 or 4 types of a huge steakhouse, a huge catering company, and I came back with like piles of menus, detailed menus and recipe books and invoice. And he's like, "Okay, you can get stuff done." I'm like, so that's kind of how we started working together. But that's the early, genesis of that. But it was like years of me wanting to get there until Oz came to me, and it was just a natural fit. And we've been working together for close to 5 years now.
All right, so we got some good stuff, didn't we? Got to kind of hear the oh gosh, hope there's no licensing here, but got to hear the Batman Begins portion of it all, right? Like the origin story of a piece of technology. That's kind of cool. I think that all the things that have gone into Christopher's career have really manifested themselves in this piece of tech. So um, tune in next week, and we will continue to delve into it. I think there's a good conversation that follows in the second part around hospitality and like the things you need to be successful in a restaurant. And I think that's largely like prime cost. So food cost, beverage cost, labor cost, and just a good heaping helping of hospitality. So I can't wait for you to hear that. And please tune in next week and we'll do some more. All right. Bye.